Premier Gospel.
There are some concerns you have around the vaccination, the COVID-19 vaccination. What are those concerns you have?
Yeah, well, I'm speaking to you just now from the newly opened mass vaccination hub in Brent, Wembley. So it's good news. We're increasing the supply of the life-saving vaccine, but also increasing the number of places you can receive it. This is the light at the end of the tunnel we've been praying for and hoping for, and it is a game changer. My worry is that there are still too many Londoners who are hesitant about receiving the vaccine. And unfortunately, many of those groups who are hesitant are from the Black London community and those from minority backgrounds. And there's a number of reasons for this. I mean, we know historically institutions have sometimes let down these minority communities, and some of these minority communities lack the trust and confidence in people in positions of power. The heartbreaking thing is those communities suffering this virus the most, ethnic minority communities who need the vaccine the most, appear to be the most hesitant to accepting the vaccine when they're eligible. And my message to all the Premier Radio listeners is, look, the people you trust in life, your GP, your pharmacist, heroic staff at the NHS, they're all receiving the vaccine when they're eligible. Her Majesty the Queen and her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, have themselves received the vaccine. If and when members of my family are eligible, I'd be inviting them to take the vaccine. So please, 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 if you're eligible to receive the vaccine, please take it. It will help you. It will help your family. It will help your community.
So a question to you, Sadiq Khan. One of the here at Premier, we had a medical scientist on who, I mean, he really debunked a lot of the myths out there, answered questions. Does it change your DNA? And he actually also navigated us through where the fears of vaccinations come from. Just so we're aware that it's nothing to be fearful of. We've been vaccinated for other things, but then at the end of the Q&A, because he was answering questions from listeners, the question of would he take it himself, and he said, well, to his mind, there's not enough data at the moment to say that the vaccinations do what we say they do, and that was from a medical scientist. So I'm assuming you're satisfied that there is enough data that this vaccination set does what it says it does.
I'm completely satisfied that this vaccine is a life changer and a game changer and will save lives, millions of lives over the course of the next few days, weeks and months. The regulating authority in the UK is very stringent. They've only approved 3 vaccines. 2 of them are now available. The third one will be available in a few months' time. The first one that was approved, Pfizer-BioNTech, has now been approved by many other countries in the world. The second one approved, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, has also now been approved by other regulators across the globe. Vaccines over decades have saved millions and millions of lives. Just think about our own childhood. Many of us received measles, mumps, rubella vaccination, or our children did. I remember in secondary school receiving a further vaccine. I received, because I've got serious asthma, an annual flu vaccine. When many of us go on holidays far away, we receive vaccines. Vaccines are safe. And when you look at the success rate in relation to the immunity they give you from the virus, it gives me even greater confidence. Look at the alternative. The alternative is, last week in London alone, more than 1,000 Londoners lost their lives. Since March, more than 10,000 Londoners have lost their lives. Across the country, more than 100,000 have lost their lives, and it's going up. Our hospitals now have more patients than they did at a peak in spring, 51% more. And that's why I say this vaccine is a lifesaver. And I'd encourage everyone to just ask yourself the question, how come my GP, who I trust, my pharmacist, my chemist, who I trust, our heroic staff in the hospitals that we go to for treatment that we trust, they're receiving the vaccine and encouraging others to do so? I mean, would the Queen have received the vaccine if she didn't think it was safe?
Now, what role do you see that church leaders have in ensuring their congregation buy into the vaccine program, considering the mountain of stuff that's online that people see regularly of either someone reacting to a vaccine or someone's other thought? What role against that tide do you see that church leaders have in convincing their congregation that this vaccine is good?
Not just as a Londoner, but as the Mayor of London, I see on a daily basis the massive contribution made to the public well-being by our church community and indeed by Premier Radio. I'm really pleased to tell you that the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has today received his COVID vaccination. And so that's fantastic leadership from the church community. I know the Bishop of London, Sarah, has been brilliant in relation to advocacy around public health. But let me be frank, many leaders of churches are respected by their congregations and by their parishioners. You give wisdom, you provide tangible services that improve the quality of life of Londoners, whether it's youth services, whether it's food banks, whether it's helping rough sleepers and the homeless, whether it's nourishment of the soul. And so I want to thank faith leaders and church leaders for the role model work you're doing, and you can really help in busting some of these myths because you are trusted message carriers. And so the key thing is to make sure that as many Londoners as possible know vaccines are safe, and those who are eligible for the vaccine receive one as soon as they're eligible to do so.
One final question for you, sir. You went against national government guidance in asking places of worship to close. Many followed your advice. Others have stayed open, claiming church is essential service. Why were you keen for them to close and when some have worked so hard to make their building COVID secure?
I want to thank the churches, the mosques, the synagogues, the gurdwaras, the temples who have worked so hard to make places of worship COVID secure. But here's the problem. The problem is that we've seen this virus continue to escalate. The problem is the NHS within days could run out of beds if the virus continues to rise. So we have to minimize the potential vectors where people can get into contact with each other and inadvertently pass the virus on. We know this new strain of virus passes rapidly. And so we know also that it's possible for you to have the virus and not realize you've got it. 1 out of 3 people who have the virus don't realize it because they don't show any symptoms. So what I've been saying to the government is we're in a situation where it is worse than it was back in spring last year. The NHS is under more pressure now than it was back in spring last year, yet the lockdown is lighter. There are fewer restrictions. Non-essential retail is open. Click and collect is open. Garden centres are open, and congregational prayer is still allowed. Now, I don't for 1 second resolve from thanking all these places for providing as COVID-secure places as they can, but we've got to minimise the possibility of the virus passing on. I know somebody of faith how important congregational prayer is, but we need to understand that short-term sacrifices will benefit us in the medium to long term, and that's why I've been advocating for the so-called short, sharp shock to avoid this stop-start lockdown we've seen over the last 10 months.
And how should someone of faith, a Christian or the Christian leader listening right now, how should they be praying for you? What one prayer would you say they should pray for you and your team and family?
Well, firstly, I want to thank, I received messages of support and prayer from members of the Christian community on a weekly basis. I thank you for the prayers you do for me and for my team. Please keep us in your prayers. The most important thing we ask for is, the prayer of wisdom, to continue for us to be wise, make the right calls, continue to provide good, strong leadership. It's really important that we stay strong during this time, but also we stay together. There are some people who try and divide communities, and I'm really thankful for the prayers of Christian leaders who are keeping us together. And my continued thanks to you. I know the power of prayer, and I'm really grateful for the prayer that your listeners are making for me, for my team, for the NHS, for those working in care homes, but also for the amazing volunteers doing a really, really important job keeping our city going during this difficult time.
Sadiq Khan, thank you again for speaking to us, and we certainly will keep you and your team and family in prayers. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Stay safe. Bless you.
Bye.
Premier Gospel. Premier Gospel.